Hi guys, I'm live. So, how you guys doing? My hair's a little drier. It's been out, it's been out of the shower longer. It takes 3 hours to dry. I just want to do like a music theory lesson right now out of my walk. It's going to have to do with rhythm and melody. So let's just go into it. So I found some cool thing about how to express the different eighth notes. Eighth note divides a quarter note into two beats. But you can do it straight, which is do 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 do, like do 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 over and over again. Do 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 do. That's going to make it even. Do 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 do, like that's straight eighth note. So if you're in 4/4 time, you would go do 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 do. That would be a major. But then if you just swing, it's doobie 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 doobie. That doobie. The do is twice as long as the B. Since the do is first, that's called what I call positive swing. Do, be, do, be, do, be, do. So that's swing in the positive direction, meaning the first note is twice as long as the note, at least eighth note is what I mean. Yeah. So make 4/4 be do, be, do, be, do, be, do, be. Now then there's negative swing or reverse swing, as I call it, where the second eighth note is twice as long as the first. So it's the inverted effect of swing, a positive swing. So my syllables for that are didant, 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 didant. The duh is the first eighth note, but the dan is twice as long. And since the duh is the first note, that's inverse swing or inverted swing or negative swing. Didant, 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 didant. So if you have any thought about that as far as which one you're doing, if you remember those syllables, I think it'll help. So just do alone is straight eighth notes. Do 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 do. Do with a B as the second one is do be do be do be do, which is positive swing, and da as the first one, and as the second is da 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 negative swing. So I think that's cool. I'm gonna use that kind of thing on my own stuff too. People don't talk about negative swing. It has to be a thing. There has to be a yin for a yang and a yang for a yin. You can't have just straight eighth notes and then only positive swing and nothing else in existence. So it has to be an inverted form of that. It's what I call negative swing. And no one had thought of it, but I did, and I coined it that. So that's that. Now, I want to talk about melody and like harmony, that side of music theory right now. So I want to talk about minor scales. There's a reason I believe why the melodic is called the jazz minor scale, at least if it's the same form, ascending and descending, and it is a form that is altered from the Dorian mode. It's sometimes called the jazz minor scale, and I think I know why that is. I talk about the melodic minor scale and the harmonic minor scale in context of harmony, and just analyze them a little bit, just for fun. How about that? So let's start with the melodic minor scale. So a melodic minor scale is a D in C major. A melodic bass is a D Dorian with a raised seventh, and that raised seventh is a C sharp, which is the root of the major scale that the D Dorian comes from. So if you start with C major seventh, and then raise the C to the C sharp, you get a C sharp half diminished seventh, and then you follow that with D minor or D minor major seven. You get the harmony for a D melodic minor scale. The reason why that's often called jazz minor scale is because in jazz you have a lot of 2-5-1s instead of 1-4-5s. And jazz is usually major keys, so the minor chord in a major key, in a jazz major key, is almost always the D minor seventh. Sure, you could have an A minor seventh, but that's kind of weaker in the progression and doesn't say as much, and is also not as, it's further off in harmony than the D minor seven is right there ready to go to the G7, which is then ready to go to the C major seventh and C a 2-5-1, 2 minor 7 5 7 1 major seventh. So to me, it's natural. If you start with a C major seventh, sharp the root to C sharp, you get a C sharp half diminished seventh, which then goes to D minor, or technically D, or it could be D minor seventh. That becomes D jazz minor or D melodic minor harmony. Only exception being if I play a D minor 7th, technically I'm not in the D melodic minor scale anymore. I'm in the D Dorian mode, because D minor 7th has a minor 7th, not a major 7th. So technically that's the 7th in D minor 7th isn't in the D melodic minor scale, but the 7th in D minor 7th is in the D Dorian mode. So in Dorian, in jazz minor scales, you have a lot of play between the major 7th and the minor 7th degree. You can almost use them anytime you want, either way. You can play D minor 7th, and you can play, you can play C sharp minor 7th, and nobody gets their pennies in a bunch because it all sounds good. It's a very jazzy sound. And I like Elton John doing this in Benny the Jets. Technically, he did his where he was in G major when he did this. I did it in G sharp major because I wanted to be challenging and I wanted to do it in a weird key. But when he did it on piano, I'm almost sure he did G major 7th, and then he sharped the G to G sharp, half diminished 7th, and then he went to A minor 7th for one of the parts, and then he goes to a D dominant 7th and back to G major 7th. Classic 251, but with the exception that he plays the raised root. After he plays the G major 7th, he sharps the root note to G sharp, half diminished 7th, but then, which temporarily makes that, the A minor coming up, the home chord for an A melodic minor scale. Except until when he gets to the actual A, he plays an A minor 7th, which then again applies an A Dorian mode. So it's all fun. It's all play between. There's a lot of exchangeability between major 7th and minor 7th in jazz in jazz minor scales. So now how about classical? Let's do the classical side. Classically, you're more dealing with A minor. And you don't usually have A minor 7th, it's usually just A minor triad, if you're in the key of C. So with A minor, you're not talking about harmonic minor scales. It's not going to be so much jazzy, but the A minor in a key of C major, the A minor chord, if all the notes are white keys, would be the home chord of an Aeolian mode or A natural minor. But you have a G 7th, G dominant 7th, a whole step below the A minor triad. And if you raise the G in that chord to a G sharp, you get a G sharp diminished 7th arpeggio, which then when you play the A minor, it becomes an A harmonic minor scale. So simple, just raise the G to G sharp, making the G dominant 7th into a G sharp G sharp full diminished 7th chord, not half diminished anymore. A G sharp diminished 7th chord, then goes to the A minor, that becomes an A harmonic minor scale. And you can even get wild. You can even get wild and do it. You could have. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first, let me say. So, but here, since you don't play A minor 7th that much in classical minor, there's not as much interplay between the 7th. And yeah, there is. I guess there is. You can still use minor 7th a lot in classical also, because sometimes you want to play G major. Like if you're in A minor, you can play F major, G major, A minor, and then A minor, G major, F major. That old Stairway to Heaven progression has a minor 7th for the A, because the G triad G major has a G in it, which is a minor 7th below the A, which makes the A convertibly a natural or alien mode. But then when you sharp the G sharp and the G 7th to make it a G sharp diminished 7th, now suddenly you've got an A harmonic minor scale. So again, there's play between the minor 7th and the major 7th in a classical minor situation too. So you never know what you're going to play as far as the 7th. You could play G sharp, not diminished 7th, to A minor, to G major. And there you have you have the root, major third and minor third expressed in just 3 chords. So a lot of interplay between 7ths there and exchangeability. But one more thing. Now what I've learned, one way of looking at this, you can look at, if you take a leading tone 7th chord, whatever it is, whether it's half diminished or full diminished, and then you play the tonic triad, whether it's minor triad or major triad, you're always going to have, if you play both of those, you're always going to have all 7 notes of your scale. And not only that, what's interesting to me is you can permutate all 4 values of that and get 4 different scales that we already know we have. Let me explain. So let's say I'm in C. For the B chord, which the B note is the leading tone, I can have a B diminished 7th or B half diminished 7th. Those are the 2 choices for the leading tone 7th chord in most standard classical whatever jazz harmony. Then the tonic chord, the 1 chord, can be major or minor, and usually a triad, and that's also true. But now if you take all 4, if you have 2 and 2, you have 2 variables and 2 other variables, and combined you have 4 possible choices. And those literally are the major scale, harmonic major scale, harmonic minor scale, and melodic minor scale. Let's see how that is. Let's see why that is. So let's say start with the B, the leading tone. If the B is a B half diminished 7th and the C is a major, then it's a major scale. Simple. A half diminished 7th leading tone to a major tonic is major, just pure major, and that would be in C major. But now try changing the B half diminished 7th to a B diminished 7th. Now I've got an A flat in there. So now if I play a C major triad, after that I've got a C harmonic major scale. So a diminished 7th leading tone. Yeah. Cool, dude. If you play a diminished 7th leading tone harmony to a tonic major harmony, you get on that tonic a harmonic major scale. Okay, check it out. This is the way it is. Now the other 2 possibilities. If I now play a B half diminished 7th, and then I go to C minor, I just played C melodic minor. Okay, so a half diminished leading tone going to a minor tonic makes a melodic minor scale on that tonic. Last choice. What if I have a B diminished 7th arpeggio or chord and go to B minor? That now makes B harmonic minor. So a leading tone diminished 7th arpeggio or chord to a tonic minor chord arpeggio makes a harmonic minor on that tonic note. So that's the 4 possibilities, and those are literally the choices between the 2 variables on each side. The leading tone can be half diminished or full diminished. The tonic can be major or minor, and if you take all 4 possibilities of that, you have all 4 permutations of a 7-note scale that are diatonic, that don't involve diminished thirds or augmented thirds. In other words, no 2 half steps in a row, and no third that's actually as big as a perfect 4th. That would be an augmented third. We don't want augmented thirds, and we don't want diminished thirds. I'm going to do a tangent to this now. Let's mind. Let's analyze the enigmatic mode now. Let's do an E enigmatic mode, because the enigmatic mode has 2 diminished thirds and 1 augmented third, all in that scale. Really weak scale in that regard. Let's check out. So an E enigmatic mode is E, F, G sharp, A sharp, C, D, D sharp, and E. So let's say that again. E, F, G sharp, A sharp, C, D, D sharp, and E. Now I might have phrased the notes differently than really should be, but that's the same notes if you just play it. I may have done it wrong. I may say C instead of B sharp. You get the point, I think. So let's see what you have in that. So your first 3 notes are E, F, and G sharp. So between E and G sharp, you have a major third. So that's 1 major third. The next third would be between F and A sharp. That's an augmented third. So it's already got an augmented third now. Now the next note is G sharp, and the next third to go to is G sharp to C. Well, that's just a major third. The next one is A sharp, which goes from A sharp. The third above that is D, so you get A sharp to D, which is also major third. So so far we're still good. We've only had one augmented third. The rest are good. But next again, now I have the next one would be C, and the third above C would be D sharp, and that's a minor third. So far we still only had the one augmented third to give us problems. But now here's the trouble. I go to the next note in the scale is a G, and then the scale has a D, a D sharp, and an E in it. So that's going to be the D, which is actually the augmented sixth interval. You can believe that. Is a diminished third because it's got D, D sharp, and E. That's a diminished third, 2 half steps in a row. We have an augmented third in the scale and a diminished third in the scale, but we're not done. The last note to be considered is D sharp. D as in dog. D sharp also has a diminished third on it because D sharp, the next notes it goes D sharp, E, and F. And D sharp to F is a diminished third. So there's 2 half steps in a row there too. So that's our second diminished third in the E enigmatic mode, or any other key of enigmatic mode actually. So this is the same thing transposed. So an enigmatic mode has an augmented third and 2 diminished thirds. Hence weird. I think it has 3 major thirds, that's 3, a minor third, that's 4, and then it has 2 diminished thirds, that's 6, and finally an augmented third, that's 7. So that's all the thirds it has to make 7 thirds. There's 7 notes in the scale. It has a minor third, it has an augmented third, it has 3 major thirds, and it has 2 diminished thirds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, let me make sure I did that right. It's got 1 minor third. It's got 3 major thirds. That's 4. Then it's got one augmented third. That's 5. And then it's got 2 diminished thirds. That's 7. Correct. So Giuseppe Verdi is the one that gets credit for inventing the enigmatic mode. Him and his composer friends were sitting around a couple hundred years ago, wondered which one of them could come up with a scale that had the most interesting but hard and challenging to harmonize, just that scale. And I think Verdi won when he thought of the enigmatic mode. So love you guys, peace, love, rock and roll.